Hi class, our next video lesson is 11.1. We're talking about arithmetic sequences today. What a sequence is it's a list of numbers in a particular order. So it's not just a random order. These numbers are listed in a very particular order with a certain pattern. For the terms, we're going to be talking about terms a lot. These are numbers that are in the sequence. So this is the first term, this is the second term, this is the third term, so on and so forth. And it's a sequence because there's a certain pattern we add 2 every time to get to the next number. Correct? So that's what those first 2 terms mean. An arithmetic sequence is a sequence in which each term after the first is found by adding a constant called the common difference to the previous term. So this is a sequence because there's a particular order, and not only is it a sequence, but it's an arithmetic sequence because we're adding to get from one term to the next. So when you think arithmetic, think add. When you think arithmetic sequence, think add to get from one term to the next. So some of our Excel math questions are quite this basic and this easy. Find the next 4 terms in the sequence. Well, we got to find the common difference. What do you add to get from one term to the next, to the next, to the next? You add 3. So then we have a positive 1, positive 4, positive 7, positive 10. That's that basic. All you got to do is add the common difference, which in this case is 3. So when we're looking at these ones now, to find certain term values, we're going to be using these formulas. This one is a big one. Okay, the explicit formula where a sub n equals a sub 1 plus n minus 1 times the common difference d. Let's talk about each and every one of these variables. N is the term number. So it might be the 5th term is 100 or the 7th term is 26. That term number, the 7th term, 7 would go in for n. So whatever term number it is. A sub n is the value of the nth term. So if the 7th term is 56. 56 is the value of the 7th term, where 7 is the term number. Okay, so that's where those go. A sub n is the value, which is 56, whereas the actual term number, that is n. So that's what those 2 variables mean. So now we have our other variables. We've already talked about the common difference. This is the number that you add to get from one term to the next, to the next, to the next. That goes in for letter D right here. A sub 1 is the value of the first term. So if our sequence was 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, our first term is the number 2. So the value of our first term goes right in there. Okay? So that's everything in this formula. In this formula, our recursive formula, there's one more, and that's a sub n minus 1. It sounds very confusing. It's actually very simple. It's just the value of the previous term. So if a sub n is 8, the value of my nth term is 8, then the previous term, a sub n minus 1, is 6. It's just the term right before it. I'll talk more about that when we have the recursive formula coming up here in the notes. But for this first one, let's again just practice writing the first 5 terms. The first term is a sub 1. A sub 1 is the value of the first term. That's what a sub 1 means. And then you get the next 5 terms, or the next 4 terms rather, just by adding the common difference. So add a negative 5. So negative 9, then add negative 5, negative 14, negative 19, negative 24. So to get each term, all you got to simply do is add the common difference. So now we're kind of getting into the meat of this lesson. Let's use this sequence, and let's write an explicit formula. So the value of my last term is a sub n. I don't know what that is because I don't know when this sequence ends. I don't know the value of my last term, so I'm just going to keep it as a sub n. A sub n equals a sub 1. A sub 1 is the value of my first term. 16/9 is the value of my first term. So that's what I'm going to write first. Plus n minus 1 times d. Now n is the amount of terms that there are. Once again, I don't know how many terms there are because it says that it goes on for quite some time. So I'm going to leave that unknown in my formula, n minus 1 times the common difference. Now, what is my common difference? How do you go from 16/9 to 10/9 to 4/9, so on and so forth? Well, the way you find that is 16/9 adding the common difference gets you the next term. So 16/9 plus what number gives you 10/9? Well, you could simply subtract 16/9 from both sides, and there you have your common difference. 10/9 minus 16/9 is a negative 6/9. And what's a negative 6/9 reduced to? A negative 2/3. Your common difference is a negative 2/3. You're adding a negative 2/3 to get from one term to the next. So here, your common difference is a negative 2/3. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Now, we're going to combine like terms a little bit because we can clean up this mess a little bit. Let's distribute this negative 2/3. So we have a sub n equals 16/9 plus a negative 2/3 n plus 2/3, because a negative times negative is a positive 2/3. And now we can add or combine like terms these two. So we have the value of my last term, a sub n, equals a negative 2/3 times the number of terms that there are, and then 16/9 plus 2/3. When you do that in your calculator, you get 22/9 plus 22/9. So there is our explicit formula. So now we can use this to find the value of any term in this sequence. So this is my answer for letter A right here. So now for letter B, use this formula to find the value of the 20th term. So what is a sub 20? Here's my first term, here's my second term, here's my third term. If I keep on adding a negative 2/3, fourth, fifth, sixth, it'd be very cumbersome to get all the way to the 20th. Let's just use our formula. The value of the 20th term equals a negative 2/3 times n. A negative 2/3 times n, which n is, how many terms do we have? 20 terms. So negative 2/3 times 20, and then adding 22/9 plus 22/9. All right, you're going to put that in your calculator. So what is a negative 2/3 multiplied by 20? Get that number, and then add 22/9. When you do that, the value of your 20th term should be a negative 98/9. Negative 98/9. There's the answer for the first one. Looking on to our next one, we're now going to use the recursive formula. So all this is, class, this formula looks kind of confusing, but all it is taking the previous term and adding the common difference. So our value of our first term is this number right here, 16/9. That's a sub 1. So to find each and every other term in this sequence, you're going to use this formula. So the value a sub n equals a sub n minus 1, the value of my previous term, plus the common difference, which we already established that the common difference is a negative 2/3. It's the same sequence, a negative 2/3. So this is my answer for problem 4a. All you got to do is add a negative 2/3. Now that I know this, I could now find any term using this recursive formula. So use the formula to find the value of the 6th term. Now one thing that's kind of cumbersome about this is in order to find the 6th term, I have to know the 5th term because I have to know the previous term. So I know the first term, second term, third term. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the 4th term. So what is a sub 4? What's the value of my 4th term? So this right here is going to be a sub 4. That equals the value of my previous term, which is a sub n minus 1. What's the value of my previous term? 4/9. What is 4/9 plus a negative 2/3? So minus 2/3. What is the value of my 4th term then? You're going to put that in your calculator. A sub 4 is, when you put that in your calculator, you get a negative 2/9. A negative 2/9. So there's my 4th term. I need to find the 6th term though. So let's keep on going. What is the value of my 5th term? Well, a sub 5, now this right here becomes a sub 5. That equals the value of 5 minus 1. So what's a sub 4 minus 2/3? Well, what's a sub 4? I found it right here. So it's a negative 2/9, because that's the value of a sub 4, minus 2/3. So I ask you this question, what is the value of my 5th term? What's a sub 5? You put this into your calculator, a negative 2/9 minus 2/3, and you get a negative 8/9. Okay, we're almost there. We got to find the 6th term, and that's what we're on now. So what is a sub 6? Well, a sub 6, now what we're going to have is this formula turns into, I want to find the sixth term, so a sub 6. That equals the value of 6 minus 1, which is a sub 5, plus a negative 2/3. Well, what is a sub 5? Aha! I found it. It's over here. So a negative 8/9 is a sub 5, and then we have to subtract 2/3, or add a negative 2/3. And there we get our answer. What's a negative 8/9 plus a negative 2/3? A negative a sub 6 is a negative 14/9. And this is our final answer. What's the value of the sixth term? Well, the value of the sixth term is right there, a negative 14/9. Okay, let's get on to another question. Use this sequence, which is the same one that we've been talking about. The common difference here is adding a negative 2/3. So we're going to use this formula right here. What if I have a negative 49 as the value? What term is that in the sequence? So I want to find n in this case. I know the value of my last term. The value of my last term is a negative 1/49. So that's going to go in right there. A negative 140 over 9. That's going to equal the value of my first term. I know that one as well. It's 16/9. 16/9 plus n minus 1. That is what I do not know. I do not know what n is. I don't know how many terms there are in this sequence. Multiplied by the common difference, which is a negative 2/3. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to solve for n. I'm first going to subtract 16/9 to get it onto this side. And when I subtract, I get a negative 156/9. That equals my quantity n minus 1 times a negative 2/3. So now let's get rid of the negative 2/3. I get rid of that by dividing by a negative 2/3. Dividing by a negative 2/3. Let's put this in our calculator. A negative 156/9. A negative 156/9. And then I have to divide that by a negative 2/3. And I get 26. So 26 equals n minus 1. So I add 1 to both sides, and what do you know it? N equals 27. The 27th term in this sequence is a negative 140 over 9. Last problem here. Write an equation for the cost to rent the Viper for n days. Write an equation for the nth term of the arithmetic sequence. So looking at this, if I were to rent a Dodge Viper, it would cost me $799. Whew! That's for one day. But if I rent it for a second day, now it costs me $12.98. And a third day is $17.97, and a fourth day is $22.96. Is there a pattern there? $7.99 plus what number? That's called our common difference, gives us $12.98. Well, if you subtract $7.99 from both sides, what is our common difference? Our common difference is $499. So each and every day that I rent this Dodge Viper, it costs me $499 more. So add $499 to get to this number, add $499 to get to this number, add $499 to get to this number, so on and so forth. So for this first one, write the equation. The equation for any arithmetic sequence is a sub n equals a sub 1 plus n minus 1 times the common difference d. So let's start filling in the information that we know. I don't know how many days I'm going to rent it for yet, so we're going to keep a sub n. That equals the value of the first day that I rent it, which is the $7.99. $7.99 plus n minus 1, I don't know how many days yet, times the common difference, which we established was $499. Let's simplify this by distributing, getting rid of our parentheses here. So we have $7.99, that equals $4.99, n minus $4.99. That equals a sub n. So now combining like terms, a sub n equals, there should be a plus sign here, equals 499n plus 300. When you add up a 799 and a negative 499, you get a positive 300. Okay, we have that. So this is our equation that gets us the amount of money it costs to rent this Dodge Viper for any number of days that we want to. So the number 7, we're going to use this. If I want to rent this for 14 days, how much money would it cost to rent it? Well, we just said that our formula was A sub n equals 499 times n, and then adding $300 to that. So if I want to rent it for 14 days, what is the value of my 14th day? A sub 14 equals $499 multiplied by 14 plus 300. Put that in your calculator, 499 times 14 first, and then add 300, and what do you get? It would cost you $7,286 to rent that car. In my opinion, I would rather spend my money on something else. But if you like driving Dodge Vipers, there you have it. Let's now look at problem number 8. If a person paid $5,290 to rent this car, how many days did he rent it for? Well, in our formula, A sub n equals 499n plus 300. I know the value of the last day. He spent this much money. So that value goes in for A sub n, $5,290. $5,290. What we want to find here is how many days did they rent it for. We want to find the value of n, because that's how many days it was rented for. That equals 499 multiplied by n plus 300. So you're going to subtract 300 from both sides first. And you're going to get 4990 equals 499n. Divide both sides by 499, and that's how many days we rent the car for. N equals 10 days. And that would be how many days you could rent it for to pay $5,290. Again, I would rather spend that $5,000 on something else, but if you want to drive a Dodge Viper for 10 days, there you have it. Let me know if you have any questions when you get to class tomorrow with this lesson.